My parents took my inheritance to renovate my sister's wedding venue, so I bought my own house and never answered their calls again. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and I've always been second to my sister. Not just second in birth order, second in love, in praise, in basic acknowledgement that I existed. My sister, Hannah, was the golden child. Everything she touched turned to gold in my parents' eyes. Straight A's, applause. Dance recital, front row seats with roses. Me? If I brought home good grades, they'd shrug and ask if I remembered to feed the dog. My mom has this way of smiling when she's disappointed in me. It's tight-lipped, like she's holding back words that might actually shatter me. My dad? He mostly stayed silent, nodding along with her, never sticking up for me, never making waves. I learned early on that if I kept my head down, maybe I'd avoid being the target of their disappointment. The only person who ever made me feel seen was my grandmother, my dad's mom. She had this soft way about her. She'd slip me extra dessert when I looked sad, write my name first in birthday cards, and once whispered to me, "You don't have to be loud to matter." I clung to that like a life raft. She also made me a promise once, when I was about 16 and feeling especially invisible. "When I'm gone," she said, patting my hand, "you'll have something of your own. I've set aside a bit of money. Not much, but enough for a down payment on a house. You deserve a place to belong." It stayed in the back of my mind for years. Through every family vacation I wasn't invited to, every Christmas where Hannah got iPads and I got socks, every time I was told I should be more helpful like her. I told myself, one day, Gran's gift will make things fair. She passed away last fall. The house was full of fake tears and catered food, and yet no one mentioned the will. Not once. After the funeral, I kept waiting for someone to bring it up. The inheritance, the promise, the part of me my grandmother had fought quietly to protect. But days turned into weeks, and the only thing anyone talked about was Hannah's wedding. I asked my mom once, casually, if Gran had left anything for us. She gave me this look like I'd just asked her to split the atom. "Oh, honey," she said, stirring her tea, "your grandmother's affairs are being handled. Don't stress about money. Focus on being supportive for your sister right now." Supportive. That word followed me like a leash. Soon, the house turned into a planning war zone. Fabric swatches, catering menus, guest lists scattered across every surface. My parents were acting like they were financing the royal wedding. I was expected to lift boxes, run errands, and keep my mouth shut. Every time I mentioned saving for my own place, Mom would sigh dramatically and say, "You have time for that later. Hannah's wedding is once in a lifetime." I overheard something one night that made my stomach twist. My dad's voice, low and worried. "Are you sure we can afford this renovation? The barn looks fine as it is." Mom's reply cut like a knife. "We'll use what's left from Mom's account." She'd want it to go toward family. That word again. Family. I sat on the staircase, gripping the railing so hard my hand went numb. My grandmother's money, my inheritance, was funding Hannah's rustic chic fairy tale venue. The next morning, I tried to ask about it directly. My mom didn't even blink. "Don't start with your paranoia again," she said. "We're not taking anything from you. Stop making everything about money." But the way she avoided my eyes said it all, and that's when I realized I wasn't waiting for fairness anymore. I was watching them steal it from me in real time. From that point on, it was like I'd disappeared. Hannah's wedding became the center of the universe. Every conversation, every dollar, every ounce of attention, it all revolved around her. My mom gushed about flower arrangements like they were sacred art. My dad nodded along, digging deeper into whatever savings he had left. I was just there, picking up dry cleaning, hauling centerpieces, driving people to and from appointments I wasn't even part of. And every time I tried to bring up the inheritance, I was shut down. "It's not the time. Don't ruin her moment. Be a good brother for once." For once. That one stuck. I remember one night in particular. I was cleaning up after dinner alone while Hannah and Mom sipped wine in the living room, laughing about the dress fitting. I walked in and asked straight out, Did Gran really leave nothing for me? Not even the money she promised? Mom didn't even pause. She left it to us to manage. It's family money, and right now the family needs it for the wedding. Hannah tilted her head, smug smile on her lips. Don't be bitter, little bro. You'll get married one day, too. We'll throw you a nice backyard barbecue. They both laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. I just stood there, holding a dish towel, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. That night I lay awake for hours. The ceiling fan creaked above me. I could hear Hannah's heels clicking down the hallway, my mom's voice reminding her not to forget her facial appointment. The world moved on like I didn't exist. I wasn't just the backup plan anymore. I was the unpaid help. And something in me started to shift. Not anger, not yet, just a cold awareness. They were never going to do right by me. Not unless I forced them to. The next morning, I decided to stop pretending I didn't know what was happening. I called the family lawyer, an old friend of my grandmother's, and asked if he could confirm what was written in her will. He hesitated, like he knew he was stepping into a storm. Your grandmother did leave something, he finally admitted. A substantial sum held in a trust, but your parents were named as the trustees until you turned 26. I felt my throat tighten. So technically it's mine, he sighed. Technically, yes, but legally they have control until your next birthday. It hit me like a slow, cruel punch. My mom had known exactly what she was doing. She didn't steal it outright. She found a way to use it before I could touch it. That night, I confronted her. "Where's the money, Mom?" I asked, standing in the kitchen doorway. "Gran left it for me." I talked to Mr. Daniels. He confirmed it. She froze mid-sip of her coffee. Then came that condescending tone she mastered years ago. "We are using it for you, sweetheart. For the family. Your sister's wedding benefits all of us. It's a celebration of our legacy." "Legacy?" I snapped. "You mean the one where you drain my inheritance for a weekend party?" Her face hardened instantly. "Watch your tone." Dad walked in halfway through, rubbing his temples like the problem was the noise, not the theft. "Son, let's not blow this out of proportion. Your mother's doing what's best." Best for who? I looked at the two of them, my mother's cold certainty, my father's cowardly silence, and realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice. They decided I didn't matter. That night I sat in my car outside the house, engine off, hands shaking. If my grandmother had trusted them, that was her mistake. But trusting them again would be mine. And I promised myself I wouldn't make that mistake twice. A week later, I found something that changed everything. It was buried deep in one of Gran's old cookbooks. The Joy of Baking. A worn-out hardcover that still smelled like vanilla and old paper. I hadn't touched it in months, but I'd been helping my mom pack away some of Gran's things for wedding decor, and I decided to hide it before she tossed it into a donation bin. Gran and I used to bake together, just the two of us back when no one else had time for me. As I flipped through the pages, a small envelope slipped out. My name was written on the front in Gran's handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded 3 times. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry I couldn't protect this money from them. I tried, I really did, but I know your mother. I knew she might find a way to get her hands on it before you could, so I left something else, just for you. Something they can't touch. It's in a safety deposit box. Your name's on it. Branch address and key included. I hope it helps you start a life far from them." My heart pounded. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely hold the key tucked into the envelope. For a moment, I just sat on the floor, hunched over, fighting back the mix of grief and hope swelling in my chest. She knew. She always knew. I didn't say a word to anyone. The next morning, I made up some excuse about running errands and drove straight to the bank. The clerk asked for ID and the key, then brought me to a private room with a small steel box. Inside was a cashier's check, made out in my name. And it wasn't just a bit of help. It was enough for a solid down payment on a decent house. No strings. No parental control, just freedom. And in that moment, I realized my escape route had always been there. I just had to take it before they found out. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in that bank parking lot for over an hour, gripping the check in my hand like it might disappear if I blinked. The paper felt heavy, not just in value, but in what it meant. It meant I wasn't powerless. It meant someone had seen me. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But all I felt was this strange, aching calm. Like for the first time in my life, I was holding something they couldn't twist, take, or belittle. I went home and slid the check into a folder, tucked it behind a stack of old college textbooks in my closet. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents. Not even my closest friend. I couldn't risk it. Instead, I started looking for homes. Quietly, carefully, nothing flashy. Just small places in nearby towns where I could breathe. Where I could be me. At night, while Hannah screamed on the phone about centerpiece colors, I'd be scrolling listings on my laptop, noting places with cracked porches or outdated kitchens, homes with character, ones I could make mine. During the day, I kept playing the role, dutiful son, helpful brother. I smiled when told to drive across town for monogrammed napkins. I nodded when Mom made passive-aggressive comments about how some people just don't understand family sacrifices. But inside, I had one foot out the door. I toured houses alone. Dressed like a college kid, played it low-key. One realtor looked at me funny when I asked if we could avoid sending anything to my home address. Just complicated family stuff, I said. He didn't ask twice, then I found it. A small 2-bedroom house on the edge of town. White siding, creaky floorboards, a front porch that caught the morning sun. It wasn't perfect, but neither was I. It felt like mine. I put in an offer that night. And for once, I didn't need permission from anyone. They still thought I was just playing the role. They had no idea I was all ready. Planning my exit, the wedding day felt more like a circus than a celebration. I was up before sunrise, hauling folding chairs into a rented barn strung with twinkle lights and overpriced drapery. My mom barked orders like a military commander, and Hannah floated around in a white silk robe, sipping champagne and barely acknowledging me. Everyone else treated her like royalty. I was the unpaid labor, the forgotten brother making sure the heaters worked and the parking signs were straight. Not once did anyone ask how I was doing. Not even a thanks for helping. I was just a background prop in her fairy tale. The venue? It was insane. I found out later it cost over $60,000 to renovate. New flooring, chandeliers, an imported wooden altar. All funded by my inheritance. The same money I was told didn't exist. The same money they claimed was being managed. But I didn't say a word. I smiled in the background photos, kept my jaw tight during the speeches, and watched as my mom cried happy tears during Hannah's first dance. It was all fake. Every bit of it. A show for the world while I stood on the sidelines, swallowing the taste of betrayal like it was part of the menu. Then, right after the cake cutting, I slipped away. No big goodbye. No dramatic confrontation. I just walked out the back of the barn, got into my car, and drove 2 hours straight to my house. I unlocked the door, stepped into the empty living room, and stood there in the silence. No floral arrangements. No glitter. No yelling. Just peace. I sat on the floor and leaned against the wall, my dress shirt still smelling like sweat and smoke from the sparklers they lit during the send-off. This place wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and I decided right then that no one in that wedding barn would ever set foot in it. The calls started the next morning. At first, just 1 or 2, missed calls from Mom. Then came the texts. "Where are you? We need to talk. You're being dramatic." I didn't answer. Not a single one. By noon, they switched from confused to angry. "You're ruining this moment for your sister. Your behavior is disgusting. After everything we've done for you?" It would have hurt before. A year ago, I would have been spiraling, typing out long explanations, apologizing for making waves, for being difficult. But sitting there in my quiet kitchen, sunlight streaming through the window, I felt nothing, not numb, just free. I didn't owe them anything anymore. They didn't know where I was. I'd closed the deal through a private realtor and had all my mail forwarded to a P.O. box. No photos online. No hints, I'd made sure of that. I was done letting them have access to me. By day 2, they brought out the guilt. Family is forever. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you. Be a man and face us. That last one made me laugh out loud. Be a man, from the people who robbed me blind and expected gratitude for it. I blocked my mom first, then Hannah, then my dad, though part of me almost didn't. But silence is a choice. His silence back then helped them steal from me. Mine now? It was protection. I turned off my phone and stepped outside. The air smelled like cut grass. A neighbor waved from across the street. I waved back. This was a place where no one knew my family. No one had heard their side of things. No one saw me as the backup plan. Just a man with his own keys, his own door, his own life. They kept calling, but I was done answering ghosts. It all would have faded quietly until Hannah sent that message. It was 2 weeks after the wedding. I'd started settling in. My house still smelled like paint and new wood, and I'd finally gotten a second-hand couch delivered. I was in the middle of putting together a coffee table when my phone buzzed. One message. No words, just a photo. Hannah, in her honeymoon suite. Lavish hotel room, champagne, rose petals on the bed, ocean in the background, and a caption that read, "Hope the view's worth it. Thanks for the funding." I stared at it for a long time, heart pounding in my ears. I didn't respond. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't scream. I just sat down slowly on the floor, right next to the half-built table, and tried to breathe. It was confirmation of what I already knew. They never loved me in the way I deserved. They didn't feel guilty. They felt entitled. She thought it was funny. A joke. My pain. Their punchline. The rage came slow, steady, heavy. Not hot. Not loud. Just deep. I almost got in the car. Almost drove back to their house, ready to unload years of swallowed pain and betrayal. I could see it in my head. Me standing in the doorway, yelling, forcing them to look me in the eye. But then I pictured my grandmother, her voice, that soft warning in her letter. Start a life far from them, so instead, I deleted the photo, and for the first time in my life, I blocked my sister, not out of spite, but because she didn't exist in the life I was building. That was the moment it truly hit me. I wasn't going back. Not ever, and if that made me the villain in their story, so be it. The silence was louder than the noise ever was. No more group texts. No passive-aggressive voicemails. No fake check-ins from people who only called when they needed something. Just me, my small creaky house, and the quiet rhythm of a life I was finally choosing. At first, I kept waiting for the guilt to creep in, for the sadness to pull me back like it always did. But it never came. What came instead were the little moments I'd never had before. Waking up and realizing no one was yelling. Cooking dinner and not being criticized for how I seasoned the chicken. Falling asleep without replaying every conversation from the day, wondering what I did wrong. I finally had space to think, to feel, to exist. Of course, they tried new tactics. An aunt I hadn't heard from in years messaged me on Facebook. "Whatever happened between you and your mom, don't let pride destroy your family." Pride? I didn't even reply. I just archived the message and went back to sanding the porch railing. There was something satisfying about working with my hands, shaping something old into something real. And yet, even as peace settled in, I knew it wouldn't last forever. One night, I got a knock on the door. My stomach clenched, but it was just my neighbor dropping off extra tomatoes from his garden. I laughed at myself after he left. I'd become so used to being blindsided that kindness felt suspicious. That's how broken they'd made me. But every day here chipped away at that damage. The quiet, the distance, the lack of control they once had over every breath I took. I wasn't healed. Not fully, but I was healing, and I had no intention of letting anyone interrupt that, especially not the people who taught me that love comes with conditions. The power shift came quietly, almost too quietly to notice at. First, I started hearing things through the grapevine. Hannah's picture-perfect marriage. Crumbling. Word got around that her husband had been spotted at bars with someone else. My cousin sent me a screenshot of a post she made, some cryptic quote about betrayal cutting deepest when it comes from those you trust. Irony didn't even begin to cover it. Meanwhile, the money they'd blown on the wedding? Gone. My dad had to take out a loan to cover some leftover venue costs. My mom, always so composed and self-righteous, was now scrambling to keep up appearances. Their perfect image was cracking, and they had no one to blame but themselves. That's when they tried again. An email this time. My mom, polite, almost sweet, "We miss you. Let's talk like adults. Families fight, but we always come back together. Gran wouldn't want us divided." I stared at it for a long time, not because I was considering replying, but because I realized something. I felt nothing reading it. No guilt, no ache, no buried hope that maybe this time she meant it. I was finally on the other side. They weren't reaching out because they cared. They were reaching out because they needed something. Maybe help, maybe comfort, maybe just someone to throw their guilt onto like always. But I wasn't their crutch anymore. I didn't respond. I archived the email and went back to repainting my bedroom. A soft gray. Calming, clean. The kind of color no one else picked for me. A few days later, a different cousin reached out saying my mom was worried about me, that she was shocked at how cold I'd become. Cold? No. I was just finally warm somewhere else, somewhere she couldn't reach, and I wasn't planning on letting her in again. I woke up early this morning. No alarm, no noise, just the soft light spilling through my bedroom window. The house was quiet but not empty. It felt full of breath, of safety, of peace. I made coffee, barefoot on the cold kitchen tile, and stepped onto the porch. The wood creaked under me like it was stretching awake, too. Across the street, an older man was walking his dog, and a little girl zipped by on a pink bike with streamers. She waved. I waved back. For once, I wasn't thinking about the past. I wasn't obsessing over who owed me an apology or what I could have done differently. I was just here. I used to think revenge would be the only thing that would make the betrayal sting less. That someday I'd scream at them, throw it all in their faces, make them hurt like they made me hurt. But I never did. And maybe that's what hurt them the most. My absence. My silence. My refusal to play my role anymore. They expected me to crawl back. I didn't. They expected me to keep being useful. I stopped. They expected me to forgive them just because they were family. But I finally realized family isn't a shield for abuse. It's not a blank check to take and take until someone breaks. They broke me, and I built myself back without them. I'll never get the years back. I'll never hear the apology I deserve. But I've got something better now. A front door that locks. A bed that's mine. A bank account they'll never touch again. And a future I get to design with no strings attached. Maybe they still tell people I'm ungrateful. Maybe I am. But I'm also free. And freedom, I've learned, is the kind of inheritance you earn by walking away and never looking back.